Moments from now at 18 hours GMT with the news bulletin. Reflections will then take the air at 18:15 GMT. You will be listening to a short talk that will inspire you. Following reflections at 18:20 GMT, Weekend Magazine takes the air. It's a mixture of talks and music and other interesting information coming your way. The Villa, talking about events at the seat of power here in Abuja, will come up at 18:45 GMT. Sports Roundup will then take the air at 19 hours GMT. It's going to be talking all about sports there, so all you sports lovers, stay with us for that. Our last program on this segment is going to be World of the Arts, and it takes air at 19:15 GMT. We're looking at one aspect of the arts, which I'm sure at the end of it you will be well informed and entertained as well. Well, Voice of Nigeria is on Twitter. You can come over there and interact with us, where our handle is @VoiceOfNigeria. You're listening to the English service of Voice of Nigeria. The time is now 18 hours Greenwich Mean Time.
Here is the world news. I'm Mazino Dixon. The headlines. Nigerian government condemns coup attempt in Turkey. African Union member states to sustain collaboration to achieve objectives of the Union. Syrian army seizes only road into rebel-held Aleppo. And now the news in details. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari has joined the United States President Barack Obama and other world leaders in vehemently condemning the abortive coup attempt in Turkey by a group of rebel army officers and men, which resulted in the death of over 100 people. President Buhari expressed sadness by reports of a violent attempt to dismantle constitutional authority and disrupt the democratically elected government of Tayyip Erdogan in Turkey. The president also noted that President Erdogan was one of Nigeria's close international partners and a supporter in his current war against terrorism. He praised the courage and immediate response of ordinary citizens who, in the face of guns and tanks, defied the rebel soldiers and forced them to abandon their mad quest for power. The Nigerian president also called on the Turkish leader to pursue reconciliation and offered Nigeria's support to the government and people of Turkey in this moment of trial. Meanwhile, Turkey has detained 6,000 people over the failed coup in the country. Justice Minister Bekir Bozdak said the sweep included high-ranking soldiers, 2,700 judges, and more than 50 senior soldiers were also detained in the western province of Denizli. Mr. Bozdak described the arrests as a clean-up operation. It will be recalled that over 260 people were killed in clashes as the coup on Friday failed. Nigeria is to partner the United States on fair labor practices to boost international trade relations in the country. The Minister of Labor and Employment, Senator Chris Ngige, stated this when he received the political officer in the U.S. Embassy, Mr. Marlin Hardinger, in Abuja, Nigeria's capital. Senator Ngige said that the primary focus of the Nigerian government was to give quality life, including employment and infrastructural development to the people. On his part, the political officer in the U.S. Embassy, Mr. Marlin Hardinger, explained that the purpose of his visit was to encourage correct and just trade efforts across Africa and the United States. In another development, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has been commended for its vigor in the fight against corruption in Nigeria. The outgoing United States ambassador to Nigeria, Mr. James Entwistle, stated this while receiving the EFCC boss, Mr. Ibrahim Magu, in his office. Mr. Entwistle said the best part of his time in Nigeria was strengthening cooperation with law enforcement agencies, especially the EFCC, while expressing delight that the Nigerian president had already asked the National Assembly to confirm the appointment of the EFCC chairman. On his part, the acting EFCC chairman, Mr. Ibrahim Magu, said Nigeria has enjoyed close working relations with the United States government during the tenure of Mr. Entwistle, urging the ambassador to continue to monitor his performance as the chairman of ESC, saying he would never compromise his integrity in the fight against corruption. Nigeria is to sustain collaboration with member states of the African Union to achieve the objective of the continental body. Vice President Yemi Oshibajo, who is leading the country's delegation to the 27th African Union Summit, disclosed this to journalists in Kigali, Rwanda. He said no country can work in isolation, and so Nigeria and all the member countries must do all it takes to sustain peace on the continent. The United Nations Security Council says it may send up to 228 UN police to Burundi to monitor the security and human rights situation due to political violence in the country. Burundi's UN ambassador, Albert Shingiro, said the country would accept only 50 unarmed UN police, adding that the sovereignty of the country must be respected. Deputy United Nations Director of Human Rights Watch, Akasia Kumar, stated that the violence in Burundi was politically inclined, calling on the government of Burundi and all parties to cease and reject any form of violence. Zimbabwe has blamed international sanctions for the cash crisis that has forced the government to delay wages to soldiers and civil servants in the country. Reports from the military and finance minister, Patrick Chinamasa, says Zimbabwe has failed to pay the army on time for 2 months, and that international sanctions were hurting the government's ability to meet its obligations. Reports say anger has risen in Zimbabwe over high unemployment, corruption in government, and shortage of money, which has resulted in people spending hours in bank queues to withdraw money. It will be recalled that in 2001, Western countries imposed sanctions on Mugabe's government over allegations of vote rigging and human rights violations. Still in Southern Africa, 5 political parties, including the ruling Patriotic Front in Zambia, have pledged to ensure that supporters desist from violence ahead of the August 11th general elections. The parties made the decision after a meeting with officials of the Electoral Commission of Zambia and church groups in Zambia's capital, Lusaka. Reports say the Electoral Commission would meet with all stakeholders as part of efforts to curb the escalating violence, which prompted a suspension of campaigning for 10 days in the Namwala and Lusaka districts. Zambia's main opposition party, the United Party for National Development, refused to commit to peaceful campaigning on the grounds that its demands were not met during the meeting with the Electoral Commission. In North Africa, Egyptian air accident investigators have confirmed an audio recording from the flight recorder of the Crash Egypt Air Flight MS-804 mentioning a fire on board the plane in its final moments. The flight recorders were last month recovered from the plane's wreckage about 290 kilometers north of the Egyptian coast and at a depth of about 3,000 meters. Automated electronic messages sent by the plane revealed that smoke detectors went off in the toilet and in the avionics area below the cockpit minutes before the plane signal was lost. The investigation committee said initial audio extracted from the flight deck voice recorder indicated that there was an attempt to put out the fire before the plane crashed. And away from Africa, Syria's army and allied militia fighters have seized the only road into the rebel-held part of Aleppo, tightening a siege around opposition areas of the northern city, which President Bashar al-Assad has pledged to recapture. Aleppo has been a major battlefield of Syria's civil war since rebels swept into the city in 2012. Reports say about 300,000 people live in the rebel-held eastern Aleppo, and for months Their lifeline has been a highway leading north from the city known as Castello Road. You're still listening to the World News, and it's coming to you from the English service of Voices Nigeria. And now for news about Nigeria, let's join Kaman Igoche.
Thank you, Dixon. Researchers in Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria in Kaduna State, northwest Nigeria, have successfully developed a remedy for tuta absoluta, popularly called tomato Ebola in Nigeria. Vice-Chancellor of the university, Professor Ibrahim Garba, stated this while responding to questions on the News Agency of Nigeria Forum in Abuja, Nigeria's capital city. He said the university's Institute of Agricultural Research, which carried out the study, has since submitted its findings to the Nigerian Minister of Agriculture. He added